Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:07. It's O'Connor and Company on this Friday morning, the 28th day of June. Thanks for joining us as we give you full coverage of last night's presidential debate, a historic evening in the United States of America. We have the pleasure of covering historic evenings the next morning, and we get to be the first word on the record here in Washington, D.C., and we treasure that responsibility and take it seriously. Coming up at 8:05, Matt Schlapp from CPEC will join us. I'm Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka.
Happy post-debate Friday.
Yeah. It is a Friday, I think, for the Republican Party and for Donald Trump, certainly, because it could not have gone better for him last night. Many people skeptical. By the way, I'll admit, I thought this debate wouldn't happen, and it did. I was wrong. I'm happy to be wrong, because I think that it was an incredibly important evening for our country and for the people of this country to see exactly what we've seen for months, if not years. But whenever we point out the obvious, that this man has diminished physical and mental and cognitive capabilities. Well, just last week we were told by the White House that those are cheap fakes, and the media, of course, took that and ran with it. They've been telling us that he's just fine. He isn't fine. And this is not just a problem politically for Democrats, who are now getting together in their smoke-filled rooms to figure out how they can subvert the democratic process. That's right. Oh, democracy is in danger. No. They are all of these discussions about, well, what do we do and how do we replace Joe Biden? That conversation that you're seeing take place on MSNBC and CNN and ABC and all the broadcast network news by Democrats and liberals, that conversation is subverting the democratic process. They are openly discussing defying the will of voters and removing Joe Biden and replacing him by fiat, by a political, nonviolent coup at their convention with someone else, just so they can retain power. All right? So spare me the democracy is on the ticket bull that we've been hearing forever. They're the ones who are subverting the will of the voters. That said, they are going to do it. They're going to get rid of Joe Biden.
Of course they will. Of course they will. Well, I mean, I think tonight cemented for those who were on the Biden bus or like, okay, we can hang in there. They are now fully off the bus. They're off the reservation, and they're trying to find out who they're going to grab next. You know, it's so we talked about this morning, but I was just looking at my notes that I made last night, and I just listened to President Biden deliver so many buzzwords like democracy, Charlottesville, all of these buzzwords that he tends to use and fall back on, and they fell flat. Why? Because that was all he delivered last night. Whatever he could get out of his mouth were some buzzwords and empty lines. That was the only thing you could understand. Whereas in contrast, President Trump, as I said, was controlled. He was restrained. He was on message, and he actually delivered policy, examples, and empathy. I forgot that. There were moments when President Trump was the one who was leaning into, I talked to the families. I felt their pain. This is not right what happened to them. That is what we should have heard from President Biden. He totally abandoned his empathy shtick, which makes us think that really all these years it has been a shtick that he just relies on rather than true authenticity.
Absolutely. Well said. No, it's always been a lie perpetrated by Biden and his apologists that he is in some way the sympathizer and empathizer in chief, and that he has such command. No, he has always been a mean-spirited, narcissistic politician who only cares about his own political advancement and his family's wealth. That he has propped his own son up in despicable fashion to be the bagman for. Let's run down this. If for some reason you missed it, or if you would like some highlights, let's go through these as quickly as we can to give you a good idea of how bad Biden was. And lost in the mix here is how good Donald Trump was last night, and how the rules of this debate actually ended up serving to sort of put up guardrails for Donald Trump to sort of say in a very specific zone that played very well for him on television. We'll start at the beginning with Joe Biden, who was so jarring to the the ears and the eyes of the American people when they saw just how bad he looked and sounded. We'll start with number 20 here, if we could. Here's where it began.
What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again.
So let's pause there for a sec. Again, obviously, you can hear in his voice. They told us later, by the way, Patrice, he was suffering from a cold.
Yeah, right. That's not a cold.
It's not a cold. And it sort of shows you why, I mention this all the time. When he does an appearance, they always hand him a microphone so he can put it right up against his mouth like that. And they crank up the gain on it so it serves to give the illusion that he has a stronger voice than he actually has. He has a very weak voice. That's why they give him that microphone. Also, you heard lies in there. Trump did not say to inject bleach. And if unemployment rose to 50%, everybody knows why, because the pandemic and government and governors forced people out of their jobs. And then I want to plow through these as quickly as possible. Cut 21, please, if we can. The lies continued, but also the brain freeze moment that we've all grown accustomed to. Watch.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Again, that right there in audio format is the side-by-side visual that so many of us saw on television.
That was last night encapsulated.
Yeah. Here's Joe Biden admitting, because we've been hearing, whatever inflation, we inherited inflation and we've brought it down. Here's in cut 20.
He said it was 9% when he took office. Let's not forget that, just a couple weeks ago.
Here's cut 22.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation.
Yeah, well, I think we can all see through that one as well, but at least we actually have the soundbite of him admitting that there was no inflation when he became president. The question of the border and border security, cut 23.
On the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country.
If you're looking for that one-liner like Reagan, there you go again, or various one-liners that have been "You're no Jack Kennedy" kind of one-liners in debate, that's the one-liner.
Yeah,
I don't know what he just said, and I don't think he knows what he just said.
He knows what he just said. It was good. Excellent.
And by the way, you mentioned earlier in the program the empathy, the fact that Trump actually came across sensitive, humane, and as a person not just in command of the issues, but a person you can relate to, which Donald Trump doesn't always come across as. I want you to listen to this. In cut 25, he was asked about, will you accept the results of the election and everything? He gave a great answer, but in that answer, well, go ahead and listen.
And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III. And we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there.
It was a great answer, especially with the I wish he were a great president. I think that it was a very relatable moment there for Donald Trump. All right, we want to play more for you. I want to hear Patrice's breakdown of this as I've been sort of bloviating at you. And I want to hear from you, 888-630-9625. What happens next? Do you think the Democrats will replace him on the ticket? If they do you think that they have to remove him from office as well? Is this a 25th Amendment moment? Or is he convinced by those that he cares about and those who care about him, if there are any left there in his family as they are indicted in all of this? Will he be convinced to actually resign and step down? Is it time for Kamala? Is there another way to go here with other names that have been floated? Come on in here and let's have a conversation about it. 888-630-9625, 7:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Jamie Whitten is in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
On the next Vince Coglianese show, you can't silence our microphones. We've got the Debate After Action report. Join us 3 to 6 right here on WMAL.
All right, Patrice, get in here. I want to hear your analysis of what we saw last night and where we stand right now, because a lot of people are asking, who's actually running things? If this man's the president, forget about as a candidate, who's actually the president?
I think President Obama and his world is still who has been running and pulling those strings. But I want to focus on President Trump last night. You know, what we saw last night in President Trump was a performance that so many conservatives have wanted, have looked for, had even hoped for when he was president of the United States and running in 2020. They found in President Trump a measured, focused, disciplined communicator. He did not veer off very often and go down rabbit holes. In fact, he stayed very focused on driving home the issue that immigration impacts everyone's life, your life, in many different ways. He took it from an economic standpoint, from a public safety standpoint, from a public resources standpoint. And I think that was so effective. With every answer, he was able to pivot back to immigration. He also didn't get into the personal attacks. You know, Joe Biden gave him so many opportunities to attack him, and he didn't. And President Trump didn't go there. He let Joe Biden's behaviors, his facial expressions, his inner coherence speak for itself. And then I think also, I loved how President Trump took this as an opportunity to both debunk lies that have been said about him time and time again, whether about what he did or did not do on January 6th or Charlottesville. But then he also introduced to a lot of people who don't watch Fox, who don't listen to WMAL, who don't listen to watch at Newsmax and conservative outlets, they never knew about Nancy Pelosi taking credit for what happened on January 6th because of her failure of leadership. He introduced that. He introduced so many pieces of information to people who listen to MSNBC and CNN and never hear the truth. And that was a great opportunity. So he did not squander his time. He took his minutes and he used them very well.
That's what Patrice thinks. You've heard what I think. Let's hear what you think. 888-630 WMAL. Denise in Bethesda. We begin with you, Denise. Thanks for calling in. What do you think?
Good morning, Larry and Patrice. I just want to say I can't believe that Joe Biden spent 6 days holed up at Camp David practicing, and that's the best he could do. What is he going to do? He's not going to have 6 days when China takes Taiwan. What the hell is he going to do then?
Wow, what a powerful and absolutely spot-on statement, Denise. Yeah, let's not forget, this was Joe Biden at his most prepared, best rested that we've ever seen. He has sequestered himself at Camp David and hasn't responded to world events. He hasn't responded to issues domestically in terms of horrific crime events in the border. And this is the best we got. And if you're an enemy of this country, and we have many enemies out there.
Yeah, we do.
If you had any thoughts of making a move against us or against one of our allies, I think you just advanced those plans, knowing who's at the helm. Denise, thank you. Powerful. Yeah. Well done. Daniel in the district. You're next up here, Daniel. What do you think?
Hey, good morning, Larry. That first caller was spot on. Talking about... 7 days to prepare, and that was the best he could do. He got destroyed last night, and he destroyed himself. I mean, Trump did a great job, but it'll never
But Trump didn't have to do much.
No. And there will never be a good time for Kamala to take over. She's worse than he could ever be, and he's got an excuse.
Yeah, listen, it's a good point, and it pains me to say that because I am no fan of Kamala Harris, and I think she is dangerous. But at least she has some mental capacity, I guess. Mental capacity. I mean, this is the bed that they've made for themselves. By the way, later today is the rally for Donald Trump down in Chesapeake.
Ooh,
Glenn Youngkin will be shoulder to shoulder with him, appearing with him in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin is on Fox and Friends this morning as well.
I just saw
doing
him,
a live thing from Manassas. Boy, this is going to be a very consequential weekend in American history. And you've got a front row seat along with us here on WMAL, and we'll hear from you more coming up. Give us a call, please. A lot of you on the line. Let's fill them. 888-630-9625. It's 723.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is it is 7:36 here. It's O'Connor and Company on a busy Friday morning, a super busy one, after a late night watching that debate and the post-debate reaction. It is a remarkable thing to behold. Coming up at 8:05, we're going to have Matt Schlapp from CPAC to give us his impression of where things stand for the Trump campaign, certainly, and also what the Democrats are going to do. We'll get into that. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Patrice,
Happy Friday.
You mentioned, thank you. You mentioned something there about Joe Biden's family, and this has been said for a long time that this is, tantamount to elder abuse, that he is being put out there in this fashion, in such a high-stress situation. And if you really love this man, you say, Joe, it's time. You should have said it a while ago, actually. But sadly, I think too many people in Joe Biden's family, based on public knowledge, public information that we've learned, from his son to his brother to, yes, his wife, they benefit personally, financially.
Yeah.
Because Joe Biden is able to sell the Biden brand, as we hear it told. And there was a moment after the debate. There is a video out there. There's no audio to it, but you can see it if you search your social medias. It was a wide shot, but people have cropped in on it and know it's not a cheap fake. After the debate, Jill Biden, the First Lady, went to Joe at the podium and then helped him down the 3 stairs in front of the podiums. And it looked just like what it is, which is a wife attending to a physically incapable husband, where he cannot even walk down 3 sets of stairs without physical assistance. And then they went to a post-debate rally, a watching party. At one point, by the way, I'm told Joe Biden said, "Thank you, North Carolina," when, of course, he's in Georgia. But then I want you to hear what Jill Biden said in introducing him, because it sort of illustrates what's going on here in this family dynamic for all of us to see. Here, listen.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the... And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie! Yes.
It's like she's dealing with a kindergartner. I mean, you did such a great job. You answered every question. Good for you.
This is not the SATs. This is not like a standardized test where you get points just for getting to the end of it. And if you saw his reaction, he was just standing there, mouth agape, with a blank look on his face, like, "Wait, I thought we were going to IHOP. What are you doing here with? Who are all these people?" It did look like elder abuse.
We want to get to your calls now and I wanted to set that because Matt in Manassas wants to sort of expand on that, Matt, because go ahead, Matt, what you saw last night and what your reaction is.
Hey, Larry and Patrice, awesome show. Larry, as a West Coast wine guy, I object to your ambassadorship of Virginia wineries. But that's okay.
Yeah, we'll get over it, man. Get over it. Expand your horizons. Our Cabernet Franc is the best on the planet.
Yeah, but let's not talk about Chambersan, okay? Hey, so you guys kind of summed it up already about the elder abuse thing. I watched it. I'm not a Biden guy. I'm definitely all about Trump. But damn, I felt sympathetic for him. Let the man enjoy his years in peace. I don't think it's fair. You got to have some pity for an older gentleman, if you will. And you watched it and you could just feel that he is slipping away mentally, physically, and I don't think he even realizes what he's being put through, and it's damn tragic, frankly. And I think as Americans we deserve a better choice, and even the Democrats deserve a better choice. And God forbid I side with the Democrats on anything, because I won't. But it's just not fair, and it was painful to watch, and my heart kind of went out to him on a human level, not a political level, to be clear, but on a human level, it just wasn't right. And
I hear you, Matt, and I appreciate you expressing it that way. Yeah, Patrice, I mean, on a human level, and as a Christian, I am tried to address all of these things from a perspective of love and charity, and yes, as a human being, a part of me does feel sorry for him. Yet, however, at the same time, last night he said that people who support Trump are subverting our democracy. He has spent the last 4 years telling everyday Americans who think that Trump is the right choice that they are basically tantamount to being anti-American terrorists. And I think of how he has treated people in the past for his own narcissistic political gain, like the family of Clarence Thomas and Clarence Thomas himself, like Robert Bork and his family. And it's hard for me to feel too sorry for him, knowing the kind of man he has been. But yes, on a very base human level, sure, he has my sympathy.
He's not going to step aside, even if they ask him to. So, his own ego won't allow him to do that, and the people around him won't move him aside. So at this point, the Democrats get what they get because of hubris and ego at this point.
Yeah, you're right. And I'll tell you something. The people around him, I said this, I think it was January, maybe February, when the Robert Hur report came out, when a U.S. attorney, special prosecutor, put in an official court filing that Joe Biden lacks the mental capability to stand trial.
Yes.
And I said, the people around him at that moment should have said, okay, guys, this is it. It's time for the end game. But instead, they circled the wagons, and they lied about Robert Hur, and they lied about Joe Biden. They said, oh, he's sharp as he's ever been. This is an outrage that he would say such thing. Behind closed doors, he's operating on all cylinders. And they lied to protect him and to protect their own power.
Exactly.
And yes, on a human level, I feel
backfiring in
bad
their
for
face right now.
But if you were the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, fine. The stock will crash and the product won't sell. But he's not that. He has the lives of men and women in the military in his hands. And that cannot stand. He cannot continue to be commander-in-chief. He cannot continue to be president. It's time. All right, more of your calls. 888-630-WMAL at 744. We continue to discuss the fallout from CNN's presidential debate last night, and we're getting your reaction at 888-630-9625. We'll turn now to John in Frederick. John, thank you so much for calling in this morning. What do you think? What did you see last night?
Hey, good morning, Larry and Patrice.
Morning.
Great show as always. When I saw things to me, one, he's really been campaigning by proxy. He's been off the public calendar. He's been avoiding a lot of different pieces and very scripted when he does come out and campaigns. And I think that was what we really saw last night was the real Joe. We didn't see the social media proxies writing all the great things that he says. What we saw was him trying to perform, and the performance was very underwhelming. And I think it was very hurtful to the country. And the second piece is, by seeing him in person and live, it really, to me, validated the Robert Hur's report. And it was spot on. And their actions to withdraw that by, executive privilege is really telling. Because had the American public been able to see that and hear that, then I think we would have not been as shocked as we were last night in the overall impact he's had and decline. Those are the two things I walked away with.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, Robert Hur deserves an
great thoughts.
apology from the media and from the Democrats who slimed him, Patrice.
No, 100% right. And by the way, I'd say, they've said that President Biden is fine. Then why didn't Robert Hur go ahead with pressing charges against
That's
him?
right.
I mean,
That's right.
Either way you
Exactly.
look at it, it's not good for Biden. So
Katie in Fairfax is next up here. Katie, thanks so much for calling in this morning. What did you see last night?
So my takeaway is that not only, as you guys have already mentioned, are the Democrats guilty of elder abuse and a protection racket to protect the American people from the knowledge that their president is incompetent. And we should all be asking who's running the country, by the way.
Yeah.
But they are also, it's the surest sign yet that we have that the Democrats do not care about the welfare of the United States of America. They honestly, this is appalling. They are only out for themselves and their party and the money and the power. They have no regard for the American people and their welfare.
Katie, thank you for
100%.
pointing that out, and I appreciate the call
100%.
this morning. Patrice, that I kept hearing, and that's why I started the program at 5 a.m. this morning, and if you missed it, please get the podcast, everybody. Because it was jarring to me to see all of these Democrat analysts on broadcast and cable analyzing this based on, oh no, what are we going to do? We can't let Trump win. And my initial response had nothing to do with the election. It had to do with who shows up to run the country behind the Resolute desk tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is a serious job.
That's right.
And Katie just pointed it out. Their whole perspective here is just whatever it takes to stay in power.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Not the people, not the military as you've been talking about, the men and women who are serving. It's simply about them having their puppet in a place where they can continue to manipulate them.
Yeah.
Puppet and
All
power.
right, more of your calls as our morning develops. It's 7:53.